Hey everyone, I'm Evelyn from the Blackwaters, and today we want to show you how to build the M6 Carnifex from Mass Effect out of EVA foam. I started off by printing out the stencil and I made sure that it's the correct size for my hand. For the base of the gun I only need the highlighted part in this picture. I grabbed my 10mm foam and started tracing the base shape as precise as I can. This will help me cut cleaner lines later on. I need the base shape twice because the gun is quite thick. I use a sharp box cutter to cut along the straight lines. To get cleaner edges, I always try to keep the knife in a 90-degree angle to my foam. While box cutters are great for straight lines, I like to use an exacto knife for curves as it's a bit easier to guide. It's time to get sticky. I use contact cement to glue the base layers together. I apply a generous amount of it and use a foam snippet to spread it out evenly across the whole area. To get the best results, I use a really thin layer of glue on both sides, and most importantly, I make sure to cover the edges nicely, as this will result in fewer gaps in the seam. After a few minutes, the glue should be dry. I align the two pieces and press them together with a good amount of pressure, basically creating a foam and glue sandwich. For the next step, I remove the connector in the grip. As I want to add a little more thickness to the grip of the gun, I trace the stencil onto 2mm foam and cut it out. Then I use the same technique as before to glue it onto the base, and this is how it looks once it's on. Now I'm separating the stencil into 3 pieces. I traced the top and the grip onto 5mm foam and made sure to align them nicely with each other. Once I'm done, I cut them out and separate the top part from the grip. This approach makes the 2 pieces fit perfectly together. For the next part, I'll need this little grip thingy. I traced it onto both grips and then sanded the edges until they're slanted along the line I drew. I didn't record the sanding, but this is how it looks once I'm done. And now I will show you how I made bevels like this one. To make sanding extra easy, I broke this piece down into 4 parts. This way I only need to bevel the edges in a straight line and don't have to figure out the corners. I put on my protective gear and started sanding the edges carefully. Every now and then I compare the pieces with the other bevels. This way I can make sure that all of them have the correct angle. Once I'm done with sanding, I glue this little foam puzzle back together. I had to do this process 4 times until all the windows were beveled. But I really love how they turned out. Now I need the top part, but with the windows cut out. I traced the shape onto 2mm foam and cut it out as many times before. This will be my detail layer. I quickly check if it matches my top layer. And then I cut out the details from my paper stencil and use that as a guide to trace the small shapes onto my foam piece. Whenever I mess up, I simply remove the markings with some rubbing alcohol. Once everything is traced, I use my exacto knife to cut everything out as precise as I can. But I made sure to not throw away any of those little pieces, as I will need them in a bit. So far, the details are looking good. But now comes the tricky part. I have to glue the 2mm detail layer onto the beveled piece. I take it slow and frequently check my reference pictures to make sure that I'm gluing in all the right pieces. And this is how it looks once I glued it on. Now it's time to glue on the little grip thingy. Before I can attach the detail layer to the gun, I need to round the grip first. Now that the grip is nice and smooth, I can glue on the top layer. But I'm not done with sanding yet. I grab the gun and even out all the sides before I continue with the next steps. The Carnifex is already looking the part, but there are still a couple things missing. To be precise, I'm still missing these details. So I went ahead and cut these little pieces out of foam and sanded them into shape. Then I made little rectangles out of 2mm foam according to the measurements and glued them on. And then I cut out 2 foam strips and slanted the ends. This will create a seamless transition once I glue the ends together. These 2 rings are for the barrel of the gun. And this little knob was simply cut from a foam dowel. Now it's time for some carving action. Foam contracts when heated. I'm using this to my advantage and carve these lines with a sharp blade. Once I hit it with my heat gun, the lines will magically open up and become visible. I use this technique on all the other line details too. And finally, I will glue on all the little foam bits that I created. Now that all the details are done, I can finally heat seal the prop. The carved lines are opening up, and once the prop is shiny, it's sealed and ready. I try to never focus too much on one spot or else I could burn the foam. Just look at this shiny prop! Sadly, the heat also opens up little gaps and lines that I didn't want to get bigger. But no prop is perfect, that's what kitting is for. This time I used Quick Seal to kit my prop. My silicone brush makes it easier to get into all those little nooks and crannies, and a little bit of water helps to smooth it all out. I usually do 2 or 3 passes until I'm happy with the result. Now that all the gaps are filled, it's prime time. Oops! I tried to add texture and it looked good on the test piece but turned out crap on the prop. I ended up sanding it off later on. And here's my Carnifex, primed and ready for painting. This is how we build our Carnifex, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. And in our next video, we will show you how to paint and weather this prop. Have a good day and keep on making. Bye!